This is Flint, and you're listening to Bravo Team.
Welcome to Bravo Team, our second G.I. Joe show looking at all the secondary G.I. Joe material. I am your host, Aaron Moss, codename Brotherhead. On this show, I'll either be by myself or have other guest hosts joining me, looking at all the G.I. Joe material out there. We'll be covering things like the toys, the Action Force comic, the European Missions comic, the movies, G.I. Joe Renegades, or anything else that is not G.I. Joe, a real American Hero comic, or the 80s cartoon. Come, join us on our mission to stop Cobra from taking over the world. Yo, Joe.
Hey there, everyone out there in YouTube land. Brotherhead here, and welcome to Bravo Team. If my math's correct, which it probably isn't, this should be episode 29. Joining me today, a lot of times I do these Bravo Teams on my own, because I do them at the last minute, but I'm actually trying to plan ahead, even though I'm behind. But I've got some other Joes in the studio with me. First up, we have Jarrod Albrecht.
That is a prescription for danger.
Jarrod Talarska.
I love it.
AKA Death Probe.
The L we didn't type in stereo. I love it. All right. Hey, man, I'm so happy to be back talking G.I. Joe with you. I like the video roll at the beginning, except it had Kevin in it, and it didn't have me in it. And
yeah, I'm still working on it. But,
I mean,
don't worry. It's a work in progress.
I see.
Also joining us, he says, quickly moving on. I'm trying to
I got more to say.
Trying to make this a little better for people watching on YouTube and, that's watching it live or recorded or whatever, Also joining us, we have Mr. Brad Abraham.
Where's my music?
Mommy and Daddy are making a better version of you.
Yeah, I was going to play that the section from Pulp Fiction where he says, look at the big brain on Brad, but there was a long pause there. And
Plus, we know that's not true. So,
well, I don't know. You said some insightful things last episode.
That's why you asked me back. Usually I'm on the fence. I'm on the bubble right now. You're like, do I pop it and get rid of him? Okay,
he says good things. We'll bring him back. What the heck?
Well, see, I think because I revealed that I don't have as big a problem with Raptor as you probably thought I did. That probably saved me this season. They're debating whether to cut my character for next season of Bravo Team and a Real American Headcast. I'm okay for now.
We had a big death scene lined up for it, but we postponed it for right now.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
My script still says Brad dies in this episode.
Uh-oh.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's supposed to be a shock surprise.
You get scripts?
Scripts? I don't even have a script.
I don't get a script at all. I'm just told by Aaron, go this dark alley after dark on the seedy side of town and just wait. Somebody will meet you there. They don't say what. I do have to leave in about an hour to do this, though, because it's a bit of a drive from here. But
again, it's a bit of a surprise. Also joining us, we have Mr. David from Australia. My mind turned off for a second. I'm having problems today hitting buttons. Dave, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, guys. Yo, Joe. Look, I'm feeling good. I've had a haircut just for this
very nice.
And I'm here to talk special missions. That's what we're here for.
Yes. And Kevin was supposed to be here, but then he realized that it's actually, I guess, a Raider game day. And, Raiders takes priority over thing for him. So
he's AWOL. So
he is AWOL, yes.
Yeah.
But when we were talking, yes, I mentioned to him, he asked if Jarrod is supposed to be here. And I told him he's supposed to be. Let me see, where's it at real quick? I was trying to find the chat I had with him.
Is he taking the field? Is that why he's not?
Yes, he's actually going to be. He's actually going to be out on the field this week, I believe.
Okay, all right, fair enough. As the mascot.
There it is. So yeah, he asked if Jarrod was going to be here, or he said, "Here's his quote." When I sent him a message about today, he's like, "Should I read it first, and do D's nuts, or is Jarrod confirmed?" And I'm like, "Well, Jarrod said he's supposed to be able to make it, so just have some nuts in your back pocket just in case."
I'm glad he's looking out for me. It gives me a warm, funny feeling.
And then he realized that, again, today is a Raider game day, like I said. So he says he's going to have to bow out. But he asked me to he designated me as Jarrod's horny translator. So
Oh,
I don't know how much horny translation is going to be in this issue, but maybe for Deke.
Not a lot.
yeah, not much, I would say.
Yeah, we don't have any Baroness in a red lingerie, and so.
No.
But anyways, we are here to talk about some special missions. And hello, everyone out there in YouTube land that may be watching or may not be watching. I forgot to put the notes for this episode. Let me pull that up real quick. So,
is anyone else hearing like a sketchy sound when he's talking?
Yeah, I am as well. Yeah.
It's like a rapid cut in and out thing.
hang on a second.
It's not like an external sound, I don't think. It's more like an electronic interference.
Let me check my plug.
Sounds fine now. Now it's not doing it. Yeah, it's way better.
Cobra's hacking the stream.
That's right.
It could be. Well, I have my fan running, but maybe he's picking up my fan because I just turned it off.
It sounded a lot more like electronic, like it would be more like wired, but it sounds fine now.
Well, let's go and play and see. So, welcome to, if my math's correct, this should be Bravo Team 29. My original plan was to do the special missions every other month, but I think I've gotten off. And again, at some point, G.I. Joe and special missions links up. So to make that happen, I'll probably end up doing these every month till we get caught up. So let's go ahead and take a look at special missions. Number 3. This was cover dated February of 1987. The on sale date was October the 28th, 1986. The cover price was 75 cents.
Doing it again.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, and 3.
That sounds
Until it doesn't. Jeez. Okay, let's try that again. This is special missions number 3. Cover date was February of 1987. The on sale date, October the 28th, 1986. The cover price was 75 cents. The title of this was called Burnout, written by some guy named Larry Hama, and the artist was Herb Trimpe. Letter, Philip Hugh Felix, colorist Bob Sharon, and the editor was Bob Harris. And the cover artist on this was Mike Zeck.
Zeck. Got fired up. No, I don't think it's just him, though. I don't think Beatty's on this one. I think it's just a Zeck. Zeck.
Yeah, according to Mike's Amazing World of Comics, it's just Mike Zeck today. And this was reprinted in G.I. Joe Special Missions trade paperback in 1989. And I'm assuming it's in the complete collection that Jarrod has.
I'm also assuming I have this one in my heart. I had all the hardbound custom because of my fanciness. So that's
very nice because you're very fancy.
That's cool.
So did they reprint the special missions in that complete collection you have?
That is a good question. They're sitting here off screen, and I will get back to you as you continue your show.
Okay, so we'll assume it's in there, but maybe not. We'll see. Maybe eventually. Listen off. Just for this one. Crank Case, Stalker, Leatherneck, and Slipstream are somewhere in the Middle East trying to steal a Russian YAK-36, a Russian version of the American Harrier jump jet. During the mission, they meet up with Deke, a pilot who was shot down and is now working for Colonel Sharif, the local leader. When a local overhears the mission and reports back to Sharif, Deke is captured and tortured for information on the Joes. As he goes to sign his confession, he stabs Sharif in the hand and escapes. Meanwhile, the Joe attacks the base with Ace pulling in an airstrike, taking out most of the SAMs. As the Joes escape with the liberated jet, Deke flies a stolen plane into a SAM that the Joes did not know about, saving the Joes, but killing himself and Colonel Sharif. That is Special Missions number 3.
And I can verify that it is in the IDW Complete Collection, Volume 6.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Cool.
And that's what we keep you around. How many of those did you end up buying anyways? Did you get all 8-ish?
They get really hard to find and expensive as the numbers go up. I topped out at 7. I think the print runs got smaller.
Oh, did they? Okay.
The later ones, and they're just harder to find. That's what I think. But the higher numbers are more expensive. But hey, I've got the complete collection coming soon from our good friend Sky.
Very nice. Very nice.
Me too.
Yeah, I didn't have that kind of cash laying around to spend. Otherwise, I would have definitely bought those. And real quick, before I continue, yes, you do. Very nice. Heinz has joined us in the chat. He says, "Afternoon, or gentlemen, good afternoon." Heinz, thank you for joining us. Glad to see you out there, buddy. And so this is Special Missions number 3. The cover of this one, we have a van full of Joes. We have Crank Case, Leatherneck, and Stalker firing out this van, going towards these Middle Easterners, I'm assuming, firing at each other. The Middle Easterners are all in red.
It's doing it again, Aaron. You might want to...
Yeah, I think you've still got the issue, Aaron.
I'm wondering if maybe just coming out, I don't know, you're hosting, maybe coming back
I should
from StreamYard. Anyway, the cover of issue 3. Oh, he's back already.
No, he's back. Could be. It feels like it's a StreamYard issue.
I also
because it's on a cycle. It seems like every 5 minutes or so.
Well, let me see if I can go out and come back then. Sorry for those. It looks like Kathy has joined us in the chat. Hey, Kathy, give me just 1 minute. I'm going to leave and hopefully this doesn't screw everything up.
See if I can freeze him out and then we'll run the rest of the show.
All right.
Oh, he's still here.
Well, I think he heard you.
I'm half deaf, so I may not have. I'll be right back.
All right. So special missions number 3.
Yeah, I'll give it it was a good one. This is a
all right. So, while he's gone, first 3 issues of special missions, which one's your favorite cover? 1, 2, or 3?
1.
Yeah, one's pretty dope. What do you think, Dave?
So what was the question?
I said first 3 issues of special missions, which was your favorite cover? I was buying time for Aaron to come in.
Thank you, Jarrod.
Sorry.
They're all good. Brad picked one which had wetsuit and torpedo dangling off the side of the ship, which is really cool.
I'm just looking at this one. Yeah, let me have a look. I've got the other 2 here. Let me.
And 2 is really cool because it's got that firefight, with Recondo and Roblox and Clutch.
Yeah, I also kind of have to be the comic book nerd guy and say, well, I also like number 1, but that's also because I got Herb Trimpe and Larry Hammond has signed it at a Comic-Con years ago.
I'm looking at number 1 right now. This is pretty cool cover. The missions we couldn't talk about until now.
That's a good one.
So who is that who is that? One of them's Torpedo, yeah?
Wetsuit and Torpedo.
Right, okay. Wetsuit's the one in the green, yeah?
Correct. Cool cover.
Let me have a look at issue 2's cover.
I didn't mean to take
that's pretty good.
Oh, no, that's fine. Am I sounding any better?
So far, yes.
Yeah, a little Max Headroomish.
Yeah.
Issue 2 is also a good cover with Roadblock there going crazy.
They're all good.
Yeah, it's
and Recondo, yeah?
Looking in volume 1 of my hardcover custom collection, it's got a couple of
very nice.
Larry and John Beatty.
But you haven't got Mike Zeck to sign it yet.
I haven't tracked Zeck down yet. Anyway, let's back to the show for Aaron. Unless Dave picked out a cover that he liked best between 1 and 2.
I would say narrowly, it's between 1 or 2. I'm going to give it to 1 because 1's the number 1. So
fair enough. Back to you, Aaron.
And I agree. I think number 1's probably the best, but yeah, they were all great covers so far. We'll see, keep going on, but yeah, they're all good covers so far. So, and which one did you pick, Jarrod, or did you not pick one? You're muted. Which is the best way?
I'll have to go with 1, but man, they're all so good. That brings us back to 3, and you started fritzing out when you started talking about the cover of 3, so that may be a great place for you to pick up.
Thank you very much, sir. So yes, the cover of 3 has a blue van hurrying down the road with Crank Case, Leatherneck, and Stalker all firing guns out at, I'm assuming, some Middle Easterners. They're all in like a reddish orange coloring as the van goes hurtling towards their mission. So let's get some thoughts on this. Jarrod.
Man, this cover, to quote a Naked Gun movie, I think it was 33 1/3, it's like swimming in raw sewage, and I lit. Because I do love this cover. A couple of my favorite things is I'll leave some stuff for everybody else. It just has a lot of energy into it. I love the way that Herb realizes that when you pick a vehicle up off the ground, oftentimes the wheels will move in a little because they're used to having the force of the car to keep them down. So you'll notice the wheels on the van as it's getting airborne, which is they're both kind of tipped inward, which is a great detail. And then you mentioned, Aaron, how they unicolored in sort of that reddish orange the guys who are fleeing in the foreground, which is great because you get that fleeing in the foreground effect, but by unicoloring them like that, it mutes them a little, so it doesn't detract from the main energy of the van launching. It's very A-Team, it's very 80s, and it's very likable.
Very nice. And Dave, do you have thoughts on this cover?
My only thoughts is that it's a very effective cover. I love seeing Stalker there operating the big gun out of the side panel. And actually, you make a great point, Jarrod, about making people in front red. I hadn't noticed that, but when I look at them, yeah, you're right, and it sort of draws your attention. I also like that background effect, that orangey sort of sunset background color. I just think that looks classy, and I do think at the end of the day, you've got to give it up for the special missions, just the sheer simplicity of how it's got G.I. Joe special missions. It really draws the eye. I think if you're picking G.I. Joe up on a monthly basis, this would be an automatic collect as well. I can't imagine being a kid, teenager, and not picking up special missions, because you're kind of like, this is where the real stuff goes down.
Yeah. I know it's not my turn, but Dave said something really smart, and I like to underline it when he says smart thing. Orange background. I was looking for my color wheel. I can't find it here, but we talk about my color wheel a lot on our network. I don't know if I've brought it up here or not before, but have I? Okay. So the color wheel lets an artist know what colors make other colors pop, and orange makes blue pop. So I was glad that Dave mentioned that, because the van is blue. Right. And I was like, oh goodness, that is a great background color choice to make that blue pop. So good catch.
Oh, very nice. And Brad, thoughts?
It's a great cover. It's a great issue. The cover really does stand out because of the colors. And initially, I remember when I was sorting these out through my long box just sometime, it didn't quite stand out to me as much as we're talking about when you're having technical difficulties, which are your favorite colors of this or covers of this run so far. And I, without hesitation, said issue number 1, and it would probably be followed in order by issue number 2 and then issue number 3. I think what was kind of throwing me off was the lack of a real background behind the van. I understand stylistically and the way it was done and everything, what the angle is. You wouldn't see a skyline or anything like that. And I kind of looked at it and wondered, how would this look with a background of a ruined city or something to kind of give us a sense of place with it. But looking at it now and hearing everyone else's comments on it, I like it a lot more just by pointing out the use of color and by pointing out the framing of the blue van in the dead center of the panel. It really draws your attention, and you can see it on like a spinner rack or just on the wall rack at a comic book store, and it does kind of leap out at you because there's a lot of complexity in the artwork, but there's a lot nice a simplicity to the design as well that really kind of grabs you. So I think if you place it in the context of a bunch of other covers alongside it, it really does kind of draw you in.
Very nice. Yeah. And I agree with you guys. Yeah. The coloring on this is fantastic. Yeah. It draws your eyes. And I love the work that he did on the 3 men. Well, actually only see 2 of them. Their faces, as like they're running scared. You can tell that they're frightened as crap, because just the look on their face is just, you can read it in their face that they're afraid of what's coming at them. So
I just want to add, I get this weird A-Team from the cover actually of the van.
Oh yeah,
the van with a bunch of guys shooting at like some little jerry-rigged platform or something like that. They mount the Gatling gun on. I think of the montage music from the A-Team, kind of dun 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 as they're putting this together in a tool shed where they just happen to be locked in by the bad guys. They can't do anything when we got them locked away with a bunch of power tools and a bunch of wire and stuff like that. So
very nice reference. I like that. That's great. Yeah, that's very much so. So let's get some numbers on this. Out of 1 to 5 Yo-Jo Colas, 1 being it sucks, 3 being average, and 5 is something that you'd want to hang up on your wall. Jarrod, 1 to 5 Yo-Jo Colas.
This not being the Long Box Crusade Network, I'm going to pour out 4.5.
Ooh, very
Yo-Jo
nice.
Colas.
Just we won't tell the dark web that you get 4.
Don't tell them what I did.
It'll be our little secret. Dave, 1 to 5.
For me, it's a 3.5, 3.5. I think it's good. I don't think it's as good as the previous 2, but it's very good. So 3.5 out of 5.
Yes, embrace the halfsies. Yes. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Brad,
good.
Come to the dark side. The dark side has halvesies. Brad, 1 to 5 Yo-Jo Colas.
Well, this is going to come across as being negative. It's not, because I give it a 3 out of 5. But on the Brad scale of things, 3 is good. 3 is good. For it to be a 4, it has to be exceptional. For it to be a 5, it has to be perfect in every way, shape, or form. But 3 is good. And that's just kind of the way I roll. So 3.
No, it's perfectly acceptable. And I am going to agree with our friend from the land down under and give it 3.5. It's a good cover. Like I say, it's probably a little better than average, which to me, that's where a 3 is as average. So it's a little better than that. But I don't know if it's quite to a 4 yet. But
I was going to say Baroness and Red Lingerie is a 5.5 out of 5 for sure.
Oh, actually, that's a 6 out of 5.
That's like the litmus test.
Yeah.
Yes, most definitely. And over in the chat, Kathy says that she was in front of Larry Hama in a food line at DragaCon, famous adjacent. Very nice, Kathy. And let's go and get some thoughts on this issue. Dave, do you have thoughts on this issue?
Yeah, enjoyable, very jargon heavy and very it's the obviously it's a bit fantastic, but very jargon heavy and very sort of like military focused. I enjoyed it. I was confused at the start when they were talking to the guy, and I'm like, who's this guy? I didn't quite understand. I almost messaged you, Aaron, because I was just confused, and then I realized that the Deke was the setup for sort of, it was a cold open, and it took me by surprise. But no, very readable. Read it last night. Very readable. Very strong issue. You can see what Larry's doing with special missions, kind of making it a bit more. I mean, the quotes real world focused. Like it's a slightly different vibe to regular G.I. Joe. There was no Cobra, for example. It was very sort of like political stuff that you would have seen, like the US bombing this place. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a very strong issue. Once I got past the first part, I've got a question. So at the beginning, when they're at the cafe, Deke's kind of like stupidly very loquacious and very overt that he's tossing over this information. He wasn't the smartest tool in the shed, old Deke. But he paid the price at the end, sacrificed himself. It's a very strong issue, like really. Larry does the team proud. Herb Trimpion does a good job, really good job, actually. It's very good.
And did you have a question there?
The question was at the start, like they were seated at the cafe, and the guy goes, "Have you no eyes, American mercenary? The city is closing up. Soon they'll be fighting in the streets." So he's saying that the people who are going to come and remove Colonel Sharif would kill him because he's flying for the Colonel Sharif.
He's basically at this point a mercenary.
Yeah. And I noticed that there was a whole stack of American pilots that refused to fly, and then at least one of them got shot. I don't know if all of them got shot, but one of them got shot.
I'm assuming several of them got shot because we saw he shot like three or four times we saw.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm assuming he shot most of them, and then he left. So, I believe he probably shot them all, is my guess. Wow. Yeah, I do. I kind of like the way that Larry and Herb left that undecided, I guess. We see him shoot a gun. We don't see who all he kills. We don't see an aftermath. We just see him shoot and then leave.
Interesting scenario to have the Americans as mercenary pilots, but then it's also the G.I. Joe force that's bombing them. So they're putting in sort of a quandary. You would have U.S. mercenaries fighting U.S. planes, I guess, or you know what I mean. Like, just interesting. I thought it was a bit more hard hitting than I expected.
Well, that's one thing Larry, especially in the special missions, I think was allowed to do a little bit more hard hitting, a little more. I don't like to use it, but realistic. And it kind of shows, what some of these pilots, if they get bombed or shot down, and this U.S. military may not want them back because they're not trustworthy or whatever, Yeah. And what are they going to do? They like flying. That's their life. And so they go where they have to. So
Deke couldn't get a pilot's license because he was viewed as psychologically kind of like damaged after getting a POW. And judging by Deke's actions throughout the whole comic, I would suggest that may have been a wise decision. Poor Deke, he got tortured and then ends up giving his life.
And I don't want to diss our government or our military, but I mean, I think that may be one thing that even to this day, our military, not our military, our government doesn't take as well care of our veterans and our servicemen that have been injured in the line of duty. I don't know if they're getting all the services they should be getting. There's someone else in the chat that can chime in more on that. They can confirm, because again, I'm coming from an outside point of view. I've never been in the military. So.
You've not been in a Vietnamese POW camp behind the
No, I haven't been there either. No,
not for military reasons.
Well, it was a drunken weekend. We'd expect, you go down a little Chinatown or a little Vietnamese town, whatever, and you start throwing money around and drink too much. You're going to wind up. Anyways, Jarrod, were you able to follow my thoughts?
I absolutely do. This you guys have hit upon some fairly hard hitting stuff that Larry has, cleverly hidden with the air quotes. And you mentioned it, Aaron, he does this a lot more in special missions. He talks more about real life military stuff. And I don't know how, what his intention was when he wrote it, if this was just in the back of his mind or if this is in front of his mind. But this is an absolute sort of condemnation of what you were saying, Aaron, about how the government back then in the early 80s, early mid 80s, is still recovering from the Vietnam War. And frankly, they didn't really know how to take care of vets returning home. I mean, they never did. I don't want to slight the guys from Korea or World War II or anything like. It's something that's sort of slowly figured out over time. And there's these lost warriors. There's these guys that they're trained to do this high tech, super important, high speed, aircraft pilot, bomber, whatever job. And then, they serve in Vietnam. They come back and it's like at the end of the first Rambo movie where he's pouring his heart out. And he says, I was in charge of $1 million equipment there. And here I can't get a job parking cars. And it's just sad. It's true. It's sad and true. So that's what these guys did. They had this skill set. They couldn't get jobs stateside. So they took these jobs to pay the bills and get by in life. And they're broken soldiers. And Deke is clearly the sort of focus of that. And I love how Larry told the story. And Deke absolutely got to redeem himself in the end, and maybe the worst way possible. But so from the heavier point of view, this is a really good comic from Larry. And I can say, Aaron, you had asked, it has gotten much better. I mean, I'm a veteran of the Iraq War, and I have almost no complaints about how the VA has treated me. I've gotten a lot of help from them. I'd give them 9 out of 10, maybe 9.5. I make them halvesies, but it's been evolving and getting better over time.
That's good.
But yeah, it really is. But to shift gears into something a little less serious, we may have mentioned this over on our G.I. Joe Chronicles show on Longbox, but I can't remember if we did or not. So I've got the perfect group of people to ask. Isn't this the same dude that was in like the very first issue of G.I. Joe for the hot potato story? The Sharif dude?
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
I think this is the same guy. I was like,
yes.
What an incredible callback. So I think that was really neat.
Yeah.
There's a callback coming up in special missions later, I think, where they go back to Afghanistan and they reunite with the Mujahideen that we first met in issue 5 and 6 when they the two-parter with the October Guard.
Right.
Oh yeah.
I think so. I think that comes up.
That might.
Can I just do a
cover? I'm not remember if it's this issue or not.
That's a great cover, by the way, that you've got there. That's
one of the issues. I can't remember if it's that one. Anyway,
does anyone who here has seen Rambo Part 3?
Heck yeah.
And, how about at the end where it's dedicated to the Taliban?
Yeah, I was about to say
that always
Brad
makes
brought
me
it
laugh.
up.
That always makes me laugh, that part at the end.
And he wasn't alone. I mean, James Bond teamed up with them in Living Daylights.
Funny.
It was very in vogue to be on their side because they were fighting the Russians. And man, that didn't stand the test of time.
I'm surprised Sly hasn't retroactively just changed that. Let's wipe that out. Like let's just wipe that little part out.
Yeah, but no, it's a great catch, Dave, because in late 80s, it was very in vogue to support them because they were fighting the Russians.
Yeah, that's right. The Russians had invaded, so whoever the Russians were fighting were sort of.
We were all about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's give them a bunch of weapons. This could never go wrong.
There's no possible way this could backfire on us. Not at all.
That should be the story of like the U.S. government involvement in like anywhere. Don't get me started. Like we're always like, take a bunch of weapons and like you might as well set a stopwatch. Like those are going to be pointed at us within the next 2 decades.
It's far from isolated. If you go through history, there's many examples of it. Yeah. The amount of people we've backed. But it's just funny.
Adjacent to this, Jarrod, I had a question for you. And you can choose to answer this or not. When you were talking earlier about how, say, the VA has done good by you and it's a lot better now than it used to, do you think in some way it was, I hate to say it, movies like First Blood and Missing in Action and Uncommon Valor and, media like this that kind of got people to say, hey, art is kind of reflecting what it sees in the world. So if you have all these stories about non-vets coming back and being traumatized and not getting the supports they need, do you think that makes some people? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that this kind of stuff, putting it in the public eye really helped. I think it gave that finally the public, because the general public didn't know I just
Right.
you know, these guys went to war and they came back. Like the general public doesn't know the stressors of that and the ramifications. But I really do think, Brad, yeah, to your point, especially I'll give a lot of credit to that first Rambo film. And I think that one was so popular. And I think that actually started getting people to think. I mean, that movie is spot on that this guy has in one region of the world and where there's a trouble, he's got $1 billion skill set. But here he's nobody. And man, that
and
is
he was treated so poorly. He was treated so poorly in that movie too. Like you know, like the sheriff was such a prick.
Yeah, and you know, and I know I'm going to go down a rabbit hole here, but especially if you read the book or if you pay close attention to the movie, you'll see the sheriff is a Korean War veteran.
Yeah,
and that's a little commentary about how those guys kind of looked down on the Vietnam guys. It was a weird dynamic, but yeah, great question, Brad. This is the deepest episode we've ever had, but good question, Brad. And I've often credited, often credited G.I. Joe and Larry Hama for really being a big part of the healing for the military post Vietnam, because they're sort of like, you know, it was a bad spot and soldiers getting spit on when they came home and stuff like that. And these kind of books in the 80s really brought back that patriotic feel, that appreciation for the military. And I think that helped a lot with the VA stat. So long answer to a really good, deep question on this episode.
And I would concur there too. And we've talked about this before when we covered Snake Eyes Origin, issues 26 and 27. And for a lot of kids our age, like I was still quite young, but I think that was a point where a lot of kids started asking their parents about Vietnam, whether their parents served or whether they were stateside, or in my case, whether they lived in a different country. And, you know, it's these things start getting out into the world and the young impressionable minds pick them up. They start asking questions about what happened and things like that. And by opening up a dialogue,
absolutely,
with the older generation too. So you learn a lot. And I think that's the big lesson we take away from all of this, from this comic, just in general, and this podcast, is you learn by talking to people and finding out what their
remember later 80s. Don't forget, Larry edited the Nam too, comic.
Absolutely.
And I've got a funny story. So I was I still am a huge Punisher fan. Of course, Punisher references Nam a lot because he comes back from it, and it's all through his comics. And then at the time, the Punisher was like #1. And they were doing a lot of advertising of the Nam in Punisher comics. And there was one image, I'll never forget it. It just had an image of a, like a GI. And then underneath it had Tet in big letters. And like the GI was just kind of like bedraggled and just looked like he was just hammered. And I remember I said to my dad, I go, "What's Tet? What's Tet in Vietnam?" And he goes, "Nothing good." And I'll never forget it. Nothing good. and it was just like, so and all that stuff. I think there was a real re-education process. And I do believe, I agree with you. I think movies like First Blood did turn the conversation back the other way, for sure. Yeah.
And comics like the Nam in particular as well.
Comics like the Nam.
That was the comic my dad read. Yeah. My dad read the
great comic.
Read the Nam.
And it holds up there.
I bought it.
You know?
Yeah, I bought it. I read it. I gave it to him. He read it. And when there was a new issue, he'd say, "Is the next issue of the Nam out yet?" Or he wanted to read it too. So
we've had Chuck Dixon on my show many times, and we've at times gone right because he did quite a lot of Nam comics after the original writer left. Yeah, he's talked about it. He did quite a few Nam comics on the back end of the run, and he talks about it. And he actually made a comment. He said he wanted to show. There was a thing in the popular culture at the time who said the Viet Cong were just kindly village organizers, and he wanted to disprove that notion. VC, the man in the black pajamas.
But I think America in general, before the 90s and maybe mid 80s, didn't take trauma. They didn't really deal with trauma. They kind of just shuffled it away and hope it'd go away. And that's why people like Deke and all them, didn't get the help they needed. And these are comic book characters. But unfortunately, I'm sure Larry knew people like that in real life that suffered and didn't get the help they needed. In fact, I know I've talked about this on my main show, My Head Speaks, back when I was in kindergarten, the bus I was on. Well, every day except for that afternoon that I rode that bus. That afternoon, I rode a different bus chasing the next door neighbor girls. Another story entirely. That bus was kidnapped. And they was like 26, 27 kids were taken out. couple towns away and buried in a van underground. And then
I remember seeing that news story. Yeah.
I was on that bus every day except for that afternoon. Me and my cousin.
What happened?
Back in 76, a small town. I grew up in Chowchilla. We were in summer school. And so we were taking a bus from our town out to the next one of these little towns that they had the summer school at.
Right.
And on the way home, it was like the last day of summer school, these 3 rich kids kidnapped the bus.
Really?
They stopped the bus out in the middle of nowhere. And they took it and they took the kids out, and the bus driver had them in a van that was buried in a rock quarry that one of their dads owned.
Really?
And they wanted a lot of money. And even though they had money, their parents were rich, they wanted money for themselves. And I guess their parents weren't giving the money they needed. They wanted to do a film or something stupid.
Right.
And they take a little town that, no one's going to worry about, and there won't be as much focus on it, and they can get money from the state.
Right.
And the kids end up escaping on their own. And instead of getting them the help they need, we'll take them to Disneyland. Right. Instead of getting the professional help they need. I know a lot of them are still traumatized, here it's been 40 years later, and a lot of them are still almost 40 years, and a lot of them are still traumatized from it. So just our mental health, especially back in the day, wasn't looked upon. It was kind of frowned upon to, you got to buckle up and, make the best of it and move on. So
ironically, after September 11th, Disneyland, Disney World did free admission for military police. And so that theory was, and I did go. So
yeah, and that's the thing. Some people would be like, "Sweet, that's cool," and be fine, and then others, unfortunately, go the other direction.
Some people need that extra help.
People are different. Yeah, people are different. Man, how heavy is that? Did these rich kids get killed?
No, they were caught. There were 3 of them. They were captured. In fact, they've only recently started getting out of prison.
Right.
But they've been in prison for like 30, 35 years.
Wow.
Because of that. Yeah,
they were all 3 plans didn't work out. I guess that plan backfired.
But they've been in jail for 30, 35 years, and they somewhat more recently started being released.
Right.
Now my question for myself in particular is, how the heck do I go on and analyze a comic book after we've had this conversation about it?
So then Stalker's like, pew.
All right, over to you, Brad. Tell us what you think of this issue.
Brad, what are your thoughts? No, but again, that was just another thought on our, until like say the mid 80s, maybe even the 90s, mental health in itself wasn't really something that we concerned ourselves with. It was kind of, pull yourself out your bootstraps, make do. And so, like I say, the kids, a lot of our vets didn't get the treatment they needed. So, and real quick in the chat,
Kathy did some research. Are you saw it?
Yeah, Kathy confirmed. Yeah, all 3 were finally paroled. I know my cousin, like I said, he was on the bus, and he was that stuff for quite a while, and he turned himself to God and all that. And he eventually came around and said, you know what? And he testified in their defense here more recently, saying that, it's doing no good keeping them in prison. I've had to learn to forgive them, to move on myself. So, but a lot of the kids don't feel that way still, but I say kids are my age or older, but so that trauma can, do a lot to a person. And our government, I don't think, like I say, until more recently, last probably a couple of decades, again, Jarrod can confirm the time frames on that probably a little better, didn't really give our troops and especially Vietnam, because Vietnam was kind of the black war, if you will, the one that, everyone frowned upon, and civilians at home would give the soldiers crap when they got back. And it just, a lot of people fell through the cracks on that. So, and this is kind of repercussions, things like this happening.
Just like Deke here. Speaking of Deke, Brad, what'd you think about this comic from the
Let's see if there's else we can dig up Deke real quick for hand over to Brad.
Oh boy, how do I follow that up? Well, first let me follow up just to bring a little bit of lightness to the situation. I just realized if you flipped the first letter of Larry's first name and his last name, so instead of Larry Hama, you get Harry Lama.
And to follow up with something else real quick, just to interrupt Brad. Yes, it was Sharif in the first issue.
Yes,
I went back and double checked. Yeah, it was Sharif was the leader back then. So. That was nice of Larry to bring it full circle and to give us a closing, if you will, to Sharif's story. So very nice. There, we brought it back from the morose. Brad, any thoughts on this issue?
Back to Harry Lama. You know what?
I'm just going to cry while Brad talks.
I will say I have some very specific memories about this particular issue because it became my exhibit A as to why G.I. Joe wasn't just a comic book for kids. Because when it came out, I had just moved from North Carolina back to Canada, and I made friends with the other comic book nerds in town, and we're all sitting around with a long box going through some books and stuff like that, and someone mentioned G.I. Joe and say, it's a kid's book and everything, and I actually pulled this issue number 3 of Special Missions out and said, go read this and then tell me what you think. And he read it and he was like, yeah, it's still for kids, but it's pretty damn good. And that's the thing I really came to love about G.I. Joe Special Missions, in that oftentimes the Joes themselves aren't really central to these stories. A lot of times they come across almost supporting characters. And I think you could argue in this one that it's Deke, the mercenary pilot for hire, who actually has the arc. He has the hero's journey from the hard-bitten, cynical, hard-drinking, hard-smoking guy in it for the money to the guy who sees the error of his ways, who takes a stand, and who makes the ultimate sacrifice to save the good guys from the bad guys. And it reminds me a little bit of, in the first issue, the captain of the vessel, the Russian captain who defects at the end, and how the whole story was just a ruse to navigate in a position that they could yank him out and help him defect and everything. And I think that's a kind of a recurring thing that happens in a lot of special mission storytelling, is that it's the mission and it's the personalities, but it's not always the Joes who are front and center, which is a nice thing to see, because I think it's this simplicity in a way of special mission stories that makes them really stand out, that they're kind of the one and done nature of telling a complete story in 22 pages. It's a very lean type of storytelling, and I think that simplicity does a really good job at driving the narrative, but it also it gives you a lot of content in it. They're not so much about the big moments, they're just more about the characters and the rotating cast of characters. Because you have to resolve the story in 22 pages, you kind of have to flesh these characters out a little bit more and say, well, I'm not going to be able to go back to tell more stories with this character because he's going to be gone by the end of the issue. Because I find that when in comics, like when there's a mainline story and the narrative really gets going, it tends to get a lot more complicated with a much larger rotating cast of characters, and Special Missions consistently stays small and more grounded in the real world. There's no missions to outer space. There's no cloning. There's no brainwave scanners. We have a really great crossover with the mainline book coming up, as you'd mentioned. But I think I've said it before, you could read the first 19 or so issues of G.I. Joe, the comic, and then roll right into Special Missions 1 and pretty much run that series through and have a consistent experience. So in a way, this sort of solidifies the fact that I think that doing Special Missions kind of gave Larry a bit of a shot in the arm and kind of helped him kind of tackle the mainline book with, I think a new energy, because we have that storyline coming up involving Quick Kick and Stalker and Snow Job and Outback. And I think the come true is the fake country Barovnia, which in the main book felt kind of Special Missions adjacent, to the point there was a Special Missions crossover. But I think that if the first 50 issues of Real American Hero, the comic, are widely recognized as the best of the run, and the following 50 less so, there's a lot of really good storylines coming up in Real American Hero, the main book, that I think are kind of influenced by what happens with Special Missions. They kind of complement each other, but I think Special Missions kind of helped Larry raise his A game somewhat. So yeah, I mean, it's a great issue, but they're all great issues, and it's well illustrated, but they're all well illustrated. It's a nice meat and potatoes bit of storytelling in comic book form. It's a lot of fun. Yeah,
I think a Real American Hero is Larry doing what Hasbro needs him to do, and Special Missions is Larry doing what Larry wants to do.
Yeah, we talked about that before. That it seems like Special Missions was Larry's. Well, I'm doing these stupid stories with Serpentor and these twins of these Mind Link. Give me something. And real quick, let's go to Kathy real quick. On the cover, she gave it a 4. She likes the color combo, the War Eagle always, and it's not too busy. So
correct on all of
very
that.
Nice. Yes. And like I said, when I first came into the story, I'm like, I don't think I remember liking this one very much. But then as I reread it, I'm like, actually, no, this was a really good story. Yeah, Deke. And I like how Deke, even though he wasn't a traitor. I mean, his country kind of betrayed him first, and that's why he ended up flying for the enemy, if you will. But when they captured him, he didn't. He wasn't giving up anything on the Joes. He's like, my fellow Americans, I'm not giving them up. until they finally pull out the screwdriver. We're going to take out your eyes so you never fly again. Okay, there we here.
Every man's got his limits.
He's holding his ground until, you're never going to fly again. All right, fine. Now, those torture and everything, that's what's finally convinced him to give up where the Joes are at. So I do like that about Deke, that, he, even though, America's kind of turned their back on him, as we've talked about, he's still holding out for his fellow American soldiers. And he could have easily avoided all the torture to begin with, but say, they're right over here. Go take them out. But he was, protecting his fellow soldiers as much as he could. So, and then, he gave the ultimate sacrifice, as we talked about, because again, the Joes didn't know at that last SAM site until they saw at the very end. And Deke, I like how he's flying the plane towards, and they're like, the Sharif's like, he can't do anything. He doesn't have any planes. We see his missiles are out. There's nothing to do to stop us. Oh, crap. He realizes what Deke's going to do as Deke is doing it. I just love that look on. I was trying to find it real quick. That look on.
It's on the last page.
Face. Yeah, there it is.
No.
He's like, no.
He said no.
No. Deke flies in. I love that the last panel there where the jets are exploding and we see Colonel Shreve's hat flying at us.
Yes, that's trippy.
3D.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Same thing, Brad. Yeah, it's kind of like a 3D effect there. But I do like, the way that hat's just flying at us and to signify that, this will probably be the last you see of him. So
there won't be any more callbacks.
Unless someone finds his hat.
Yeah.
And clones it. No, never mind. Anyways, that's for the main book. Overall, like you guys have all said, it's a great story. I love what Larry and Herb did as far as the writing and the art. I like here on the last page where Slipstream's kind of saluting Deke. He's like, poor Deke, never knew what this was all about. Ain't that the way it always is? Because in the military, again, I'm sure Jarrod can confirm this, or maybe he's been told not to. They don't always get told.
Yeah.
Some of the bigger plans and what they're you need to do this, and they're going to do it.
I bet often that happens. You're just there, and you're put in the situation. You're told, here's your target. That's it. You don't need to know the larger story. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, even when you get like a top secret clearance, it's called TSSCI. And the SCI stands for Special Compartmentalized Information. Compartmentalized means this piece of it. You don't know all the pieces. All done by design. You guys I can confirm that.
But any other thoughts? Jarrod, any other thoughts on this issue we may have missed?
Just two quick hitters. I really liked always at the beginning how Deke's talking to Slipstream, like, why are you even here? You're fighter jock, all that jazz. And it was great how that paid off in the end, where they're like, man, we really need someone who can fly this plane. It was like, hey, here I am, guys. And then I'm kind of pulling a Kevin here and going a little meta. I love the ads in this one. The laser tag ad. I always love the Spider-Man and the soggy cereal one. But I really like the laser. And there was one other that leapt off at me. I was like, man, that's just a good memory. You'll find it as I'm flipping here. Where was it? Near the back. Yeah. Oh, the Star comics. The Marvel launched the Star line with Thundercats, He-Man, Care Bears, Droids, Top Dog, I think, Cliff, Peter Porker, Spectacular Spider-Ham, like all that stuff. Man, that's just good.
Oh, they're cartoon.
I love Peter Porker. What a great character he is.
Oh yeah.
Great character.
And Dave,
I'll say this with just Peter Porker. Tom DeFalco, I believe, may have co-created that character with Larry Hama, potentially. Peter Porker, Spider-Man. And the reason I say that is we had Tom DeFalco on the show, and he told us the origin of it, except I forget it now. But Larry Hama was involved in the creation, for sure.
According to the internet, this is the creators of Dan Lee, Steve Ditko, Tom DeFalco, Larry Hama, and Mark Armstrong.
Oh, wow. I didn't know Larry had a hand in Peter Porker.
Yeah, he did. And I remember Tom DeFalco saying that when we had him on the show. Final thoughts on this issue. Excellent issue. It's grown up G.I. Joe. It goes to show, in the middle of the 80s, Larry was already doing that kind of quite comfortable doing sort of that slightly more real world based military comic. It felt completely in his wheelhouse. In fact, it felt like if he wanted to, he could have got a lot harder, but this was what he could get away with at the time. And I think it probably reads slightly older than the mainline comic did at the same moment, and I think that's a really good thing. Way of keeping your readers as they age. You know?
Yeah, well, very much so. Yeah, and I'm sure this is a little bit more older audience, but he still wanted to keep.
Yes.
He didn't want to totally lose the kids. So yeah,
it's very similar to when Punisher War Journal came out, when the regular Punisher comic was happening. If you love Punisher, you're buying Punisher War Journal.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I was.
If you love, me too. If you love G.I. Joe, you'd be picking up G.I. Joe Special Missions. Very simple.
Yep. Oh, yeah, very much so. And Brad, any final thoughts on this issue?
Yeah, I just want to add something here. I was looking through the checklist for the month, and I got to say, if you are a G.I. Joe fan or a Transformers fan, this is a very good month to be both. But we have G.I. Joe in this month, October of 1986. We had G.I. Joe Special Missions number 3. We had Transformers the movie adaptation number 3.
Cool.
We had issue 2 of G.I. Joe and the Transformers, the crossover.
Wow.
We had G.I. Joe number 56. Adjacent to this, we had the Nom number 3. We had issue 3 of Transformers Universe, which was kind of like the G.I. Joe Order of Battle, only for the Transformers. We also have G.I. Joe Order of Battle number 4. And we have G.I. Joe Digest number 2. So, yeah.
Hasbro was like, yeah, baby, yeah.
Raking in the dollars that much.
This was the era for G.I. Joe, because, they had all these extra books. They started doing the digest, which were the reprints, reprinted 2 stories.
Well, that's the thing I like about going through the old original issues, if you're lucky enough to have them, is just kind of looking through the ads and looking at the checklist and seeing what was there at the time. I do recall a time, we even covered it on this podcast or on the Real American Headcast, and it was like there was a month where the Marvel Star Wars comic was going strong. The Marvel Indiana Jones comic was also going on, and G.I. Joe was going on, and the Transformers was going on. It was almost like the old guard was sort of fading into the background, and the new shiny toys for the kids were kind of rising.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
There were those months where those things all kind of overlapped. It wasn't just one thing then the other thing.
Very much so.
Step would be Turtles, right? G.I. Joe and Transformers will fade into Turtles.
Yeah.
Eventually, yeah. Turtles are cool.
Right,
Turtles was always like the toy in the comic that your younger sibling was into. You know,
that was me. My older brother Jason was into Joe, and I like Joe and Turtles.
Yeah.
Which still hasn't got a crossover, by the way.
But that was always my recollection. It was like the younger brother of a girl I was dating, or the younger sibling of a friend of mine, and like this Ninja Turtle stuff everywhere. And I was like, okay,
Turtle power.
Enjoy it. It doesn't last.
Yeah,
you outgrow these things. Unless you're us, and you just keep talking. It's like we outgrow these things.
Who the hell is he talking to?
I haven't.
I was looking. I'm looking at special missions. Like 86, 87 was when I started getting out of G.I. Joe because I was too air quote mature and old for it. Now I'm like 50 years old and I'm back into G.I. Joe and all that other stuff. So it never quite leaves you. It's always there to some degree.
You're back in the shed, to quote.
Back in the bush.
But yeah, no, you guys did an excellent job. Yeah, this is a great issue. And like you guys said, the special missions was always a little bit more adult themed, but still trying to keep it a little bit of its toes for the younger kids that's reading G.I. Joe. They can come over and read
after you're done. I just want to add one thing to that effect, or to that point you made when you're finished. I kind of jumped in on you.
That's all right. But yeah, so Larry did a great job. We've talked about, this is probably Larry's pet project related to G.I. Joe, where you could tell the bit more adult oriented stories and rev them up and get them back excited for, writing about Serpentor and Dr. Mindbender and all that. And Kathy over in the chat says that she remembers some of those cartoons going off that star list.
That star list. Yeah, I was like, what's she talking? Oh, it's Star. Yeah. Heck yeah.
And Brad, you had some further thoughts?
Just that what I like is I like the special missions. You could say it's a more mature, more realistic variation on a G.I. Joe story, but it's not so mature and so realistic that it ceases to become what G.I. Joe is. And I think, especially now there's this mindset amongst a lot of older fans of properties that they were into as a kid who kind of want to push it darker and more violent and more everything. And when you do that, like something like Star Wars, and saying, well, no, I want Star Wars where heads are getting chopped off and everyone's getting it on and everything. And it's like, well, that's not really Star Wars. That's not really G.I. Joe or the Transformers. That's you, an adult with those adjacent interests, trying to kind of stuff a square peg into a round hole, that kind of thing. It's like if you,
it's Luke Skywalker.
You get too far away from it,
but he's miserable. He's Indiana Jones, but he's miserable. Yeah, come on, man. Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Oh, don't get me started either. Don't get me going there.
You got me started. No, I love these people on these different Facebook groups. Yeah, the adults, the fans have grown up, so they need to change, these shows to be more like what the adults want. And well, that's not what the property is, though. They have properties that's similar to that for you, but that's not, not what they don't. Superman needs to grow up and mature. Well, no, that's who Superman is. That he's the big blue Boy Scout for a reason.
Superman is mature. Anyway,
well, again, they want to see him killing people and more nudity and more.
It's Superman. Really?
Yeah, that's not Superman.
Why do we catch the blame for that? 80s kids, they're like, oh, it's you guys are catch the blame. I'm like, Superman's been around since the 30s, man. Let's not pretend like we did this.
And why doesn't Batman dance anymore?
Now that's a fair question.
Inquiring minds.
Well, okay. Speaking of tangents and segues, Batman is the classic example of what you can do with the character. You can make him a vampire, you can make it grimdark horror type stuff, you can make it giant dinosaurs and giant coins and doing the Bat-2Z, but it's at its core, it's still dresses up as a bat and fights crime. So you get to, it's like, we're going to do a Batman movie or a Batman story, great, and he's not going to dress up as a bat, and he's just going to be a guy who runs around beating the crap out of people. Like, then it's not the thing.
It's a Chuck Norris movie, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. There you go. It's Chuck Norris. It's Chuck Norris's new movie. That's one thing that annoys these people in all these groups. Well, they need to change this and change. Well, no, that's not what people want. It's not just because you grew up and want something more mature doesn't mean they should totally change everything else just to make you happy.
I'll tell you, one of the writers who's most guilty of that is Tom King. Constantly, so many times he takes characters, and his only option, it seems, is I'm going to give him PTSD. I'm going to make no, he does, and I'm going to make Mr. Miracle suicidal and try to kill himself. I'm going to make Booster Gold kill Batman's parents. Like, it's always just the most cliched, obvious stuff. And believe you me, many times on Signal Doom, we've gone after him for it, And I bet you we've had him quaking in his boots.
I'm a big Mr. Miracle fan. I couldn't get into that series that he wrote. With Mr. Miracle being all depressed and suicide.
I'm telling you, take the character, make him miserable. That's the new formula.
Mr. Miserable.
I think I've enjoyed some of those things you're complaining about, Jarrod, but that's my old.
Welcome to Grumpy Guy Cast, episode 3, ladies and gentlemen.
This is what pissed me off this week. Oh.
Yeah.
You see, like, he's James Bond, except he's miserable. Damn it.
It's the most obvious stuff too. So it's like, take James Bond, who with the martinis, let's make him an alcoholic and let's make him deal with that. It's like, God, you're not even trying. Like, it's not hard to adjust those knobs, but you probably shouldn't bother,
Right.
Guess what? He's a miserable, misogynistic alcoholic. I'm like, he's all those things, but he's James Bond. You don't need to amp those things up already. It's just obvious stuff that I'm telling you as a writer. It makes me roll my eyes.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
Yeah. Now that we're all miserable, let's take this podcast, make us miserable.
Hey, go read G.I. Joe, kids.
Yeah, it'll perk you up.
Thanks for letting us know about Peter Porker being helped created by Larry Hum. I was not aware that Larry. Going back there.
That's the kind of hard-hitting journalism I do on Signal of Doom.
There you go. Parents a great show. I guess I should listen to one of these days.
Well, we've learned through reading this that in his writing, he has some in person too. When you catch him at the right moment, he's got a tremendously good sense of humor.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, we talked about just to look at that guy's face. No, as he's running away from Deacon. Like, Larry's got comedic in him quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to meet him, but hopefully one of these years.
Have you not met him, Aaron? I would have thought.
No.
Restraining order.
Yeah, shh. I'm not allowed to talk about that either. I just had a phone call from the lawyers. Yeah, no, Larry, I haven't had a chance to meet Larry, unfortunately. So.
You're outside his house every night, but you haven't met him.
Yes, well, I've been face to face. I mean, yes, I've been watching through his window, and
you've gone through his trash.
Yeah. I know as well as anyone can know a man, but without actually meeting him,
And, got a lot of pictures of him. They're all through like leaves and whatnot.
I've been in his bathroom watching as he, shaves in the morning, but that's another story entirely.
That's so funny.
So, Brad, before I get arrested, that's what I was trying to go for. If people hear more
thoughts,
I think we're going to cover the final thoughts. Unless you have final thoughts I've missed.
I have no final thoughts. I think I spilled it out onto the page like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. So where can people go to hear more about you?
Oh, if they want to, not when, or because they definitely want to. If they want to, they can hit up my website, bradabraham.com. It's where I do a lot of my scribbling. I just finished my summer Celluloid Heroes series. I wrote about Tim Burton's Batman, Irvin Kershner's RoboCop 2, and Oliver Stone's Natural Born Killers. And these are just, I guess, reviews / reminiscence about seeing these movies in the theater for the first time and what that vibe was. And next month, which will probably be this month when this one actually goes up into podcast land, I'm writing a piece about the Bachman books, which if you're a Stephen King fan, you know what they are. If you're not a Stephen King fan, you'll have to go to bradabraham.com around October 10th and read all about it.
And I haven't read it, but I highly recommend it because, I'm familiar with Bachman and very nice. And Dave, if more people hear about you, where do they go?
Signal of Doom, weekly comic book podcast, comic book movies and comic books and creator interviews. We're weekly. We're on all the major podcast apps. And, you can see us on Facebook, see us on X. We're available. We're there. Me and Rich on Signal of Doom.
Very nice. And I guess that's it for me. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot about... All right, can't help myself. Jarrod, where can people go?
I gotta kill the Bachman's project ad coming up. That one anymore. Cancel new podcast. I'm calling Signal. All right. Anyways, I am at Yard Sale Artist on X, Facebook, and Instagram. It's all at Yard Sale Artist. All my podcast stuff is at Longbox Crusade.
Very nice. And I am at headspeaks.com. Actually, if you go to headcast.headspeaks.com, I've got all my podcasts listed on there. Headspeaks was my main show, which I talk about anything geeky. Right now, I'm covering different years in the 1985 and kind of talking about some of the most popular things, some of the things I liked about it. I just finished up looking at the Power of the Atom. I've got some other projects and ideas in mind. We've got our G.I. Joe show, which is our main show, G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast. And this show, which is Bravo Team. And coming soon, I'll have a third G.I. Joe show coming out. Called the Energon Protocols, where I was doing this previously. We have the Renegade Studios has a G.I. Joe role-playing game. We were playing that last year, and due to life, we had to put a hold on it, and it kind of went by the wayside. Our game master, Eric, who've had on one of my G.I. Joe shows before, he's restarted with me and a couple of guys, and I'll be releasing those soon as the Energon Protocols. It's the new, he's got it very much tied into the G.I. Joe and Transformers comic that's coming out right now that's tied together. So, some G.I. Joe, some Transformers. It's good times. And then I've got my other shows, the Starman Venture Hour, Task Force X, and the Starbright Project, all available on headcast.headspeaks.com. Again, I'm on YouTube at youtube.com, some long name, g.i.joe_headcast. And then I've also got on Facebook at facebook.com/group/G.I. Joe. Come check us out. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe buttons down the bottom and be notified when there's a new show. You can call and leave a message. I got it scrolling there at the bottom, 1-559-500-3182. You can call and leave a message. Again, that's 1-559-500-3182. If you go to patreon.com/headcast network, I've got a Patreon page set up. You can go ahead and visit there and leave a few bucks in the tin if you like what I'm doing. Send me an email. Anything for G.I. Joe, you can send it to gijoe@headspeaks.com. We're here on YouTube on the 4th Sunday of the month normally. Next month, we may have to change that. I'll get with you guys and talk about that. And Then the third Friday of every month, I have my unboxing review show where I unbox. I was doing G.I. Joe toys. Now I'm doing G.I. Joe. I'm doing some Transformers. Last episode, this last Friday, did the Atom from DC Comics. So whatever I got laying around here to open up, I got a lot of stuff I've still got boxed up. So check us out then. And until next month, I guess that'll do it. Remember, knowing is half the battle.
Yo, Joe.
Yo, Joe.
Thank you for listening to Bravo Team, a supplementary G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast show. Be sure to check out our main show, the second Tuesday of the month, G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast, where I talk about the G.I. Joe, a Real American Hero comic book series written by Larry Hama and the G.I. Joe cartoon from the 80s. Be sure to like us on Facebook. Check out our Facebook page. Just search for G.I. Joe, a Real American Headcast, under both Facebook and over on Twitter. We're also over on Google+. Be sure to rate us and to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcast from. And be sure to write in and let us know how we're doing. We love hearing from fans. You can write to us at bravoteam@headspeaks.com. You can also send an MP3 file in and we'll play that on the air. You can send that to bravoteam@headspeaks.com. And be sure to check out my other great shows on the Headcast Network, Head Speaks, Task Force X, and the Starman Manhunter Adventure Hour, plus possibly more in the future. Also, be sure to check out the podcasts of my co-hosts. They have some great shows. And if you want to appear on this show, definitely let me know. I'm always up to speaking to new people. You can send me a Facebook message or you can send us an email to bravoteam@headspeaks.com. Be sure to check out our website. The main site is at headspeaks.com, but you can check out the website for this show at gijoe.headspeaks.com. Be sure to join us here monthly for another great podcast. Until next time, Joe's dismissed.